Hi everyone. This video will give you some guidance in doing a literature review according to the patented procedure I have developed for the Income Dynamics lab. So first step, you're going to want to, so just a quick thing you want to do first is actually, so we use Google Scholar quite a bit to get basically the bibliographic information for these articles. So the first thing you're going to do just to get things set up is to go to the settings here and then make sure that under Bibliography Manager you have Show Links to Import Citations Into and you choose BibTeX. All right, do that and save. Okay, that's the first step. Second step is now you should have installed JabRef. If you haven't, then you can go to jabref.org and you can download that here. So once you have JabRef, it'll show up like this. And so what you're going to want to do is, oops, I don't want that anymore. Open a new database. And so this is what you're going to work with. So for every project, every literature review you're assigned, you should have a separate JabRef file. All right, so now you have your new JabRef folder open. And now where we're going to start in this is always with EconLit. Now, I have a link here, or something on my desktop to automatically take me there. I also include the link to this down below, attached to this video. All right. So EconLit is a really nice search tool because really what's valuable about it is aside from, in many ways it's similar to Google Scholar, but what's really valuable is that it lets you restrict your search to a certain set of journals. That's actually the most important thing because if you go to say Google Scholar and search for some terms, I can almost guarantee you're going to have all kinds of stuff from organic chemistry or hydrology show up, and that's not terribly useful. Whereas with this, you can restrict it to the journals where it's most likely to show up, in particular econ journals, or depending on the project, you may actually want, say, political science journals. You may perhaps actually want the hydrology journals, who knows? But at least you have some control over it. All right, so the first thing you want to do for a good econ lit search is, as I said, restrict it to the journals you want. So for publication title. Now, this only gives you two fields here, so we're going to have to actually expand out the search in a moment. I'll show you how to do that just now. But for starters, it's always good to have, so whenever you search for stuff in economics, you're always going to want to have the top 5 journals. So those are, so we'll start out with the American Economic Review and Quarterly Journal of Economics, right? And we'll start out with those. And so let's suppose we were trying to construct a literature review, for a project I have now on climate and power. So the point of this paper is to figure out the impact on political power of changes in the climate. So basically long-term persistent changes in climate. How does that affect economic power, and through its effect on economic power, how does it affect political power? All right, so you can see here, this is what, so when I inadvertently pushed enter, it just did a general search on all the articles published in these two journals. Let's go back. That's a little bit too broad for us. Next. And let's suppose that we want, say, climate change. All right, and we're going to put this anywhere. We want this to be in the publication title. And let's suppose we also, in addition to climate change, we want political or politic. Let's do this search here. So this is going to bring up all of the articles in the American Economic Review or the Quarterly Journal of Economics, or really publications that have those titles in their names that have both the terms climate change and one of either political or politic. And it looks like there are just a few. But so we want to broaden this a little bit. So having just these two journals is a little too restrictive. So I'm going to actually move this part here over here. And so for the publication titles, let's add a few. So these are two of the top 5. We also want to have Econometrica or Journal Political Economy or Review of Economic Studies. Right? So these are the top 5 journals: the American Economic Review, Quarterly Journal of Economics, Econometrica, Journal of Political Economy, the Review of Economic Studies. So anytime you search for basically anything, you want to include those, not necessarily because only, so all good papers will appear in these top 5 or because all the articles appearing in these top 5 are good, but because these are the main general interest journals. Yeah, so on average, articles published here are generally better, but the more important point is that these are general interest journals, and so they will publish articles from basically any branch of economics. So let's redo the search there and see if we get anything else. Now you can see we get 39 articles, right? Um, Now here's one important thing. So you'll notice that we want publications in, say, Journal of Political Economy. The problem is this doesn't actually restrict it to Journal of Political Economy. It simply looks for things that have these terms in the title. So you will also get things like the Journal of Australian Political Economy, which may not be what we want. Now, to be totally honest, I don't quite know all of the secrets of EconLit's search language, so it may be useful at some point to look at the help file. You can try putting quotes around it. And now it eliminates the Journal of Australian Political Economy. Unfortunately, now you get the European Journal of Political Economy and the Scottish Journal of Political Economy. So you're never able to completely deal with this. Uh, but nevertheless, this certainly narrows it down a bit. So looking through here, you can see that there is paper published in the actual Journal of Political Economy from David Friedman, 1987, Cold Houses on Warm Climates and Vice Versa. This is not really what we were looking for, right? This seems like a paper on heating degree day units and the rational response, which isn't terribly useful to us. So perhaps instead we have to broaden our search terms a bit, right? Um, But here's something useful, right? So revolt on the Nile, economic shocks, religion, and political power. So you can do the preview here. And so you can see using centuries of Nile flood data, I document that during deviant Nile floods, Egypt's high-ranking religious authority was less likely to be replaced and relative allocations to religious structures increased. Findings are consistent with historical evidence that Nile shocks increase this authority. So this actually looks quite relevant, right? So things like floods are more likely in the event of climate change. So what we're going to do here is check that box, all right? Now, we'll worry about why we did that in a moment, but just check the box for now. Let's look at this lecture. We don't really have a bunch of information about it, but we'll check it for now anyways. And this one looks interesting. Huh. So this paper looks more like the decision problem to rule out catastrophic events as opposed to something actually about the effects. Okay, but let's say we go with these two for now. Now what we can do here is add these to my research. Now, of course, we have to actually sign into that first. Now, so you will probably have to actually create a My Research account in order to do this. All right, so now we've signed into My Research. So let's go back and check our two boxes. So this is actually a good lesson. It helps to sign into my research first. But okay, anyways, now it's figured out what I want. And so it's selected these items for me. And so I can go up here and say, save to my research, right? Ask me where I want to save that. It can be useful for you to create a folder. So this is obviously after you've created your account here on my research. Let's suppose we create a new folder. I'm going to call that climate and power. Maybe deselect when I'm done. Okay, great. So now we have a bunch of items in my research. Why it's useful to do that is because you can sort of accumulate a bunch of articles over time, and you'll have them saved up here, so you don't have to deal with them immediately. Okay, so what's the next step? So let's go to, go to the saved documents in my research, and can restrict it to that folder we just made. And now the next step we want to do is actually get the papers, all right? So for example, suppose we're interested in this revolt on the Nile. I'm going to control click on this to open it in a different tab. So this UC links thing is useful because it tells us how we can get this. So it looks like this one is harder to get, which is a little silly because we almost certainly do have access to Econometrica. So let's instead simply try Googling this. All right, so turns out we can also get the PDF from Harvard. And so Eric Cheney has kindly posted this paper right here. So now we're going to take this, we'll save it. So we will presumably have a folder on your computer for each of these things. So you want to keep them organized however you want. I have this, so sometimes when I will do literature searches, I have these general folders for literature that I just have and will refer to many times, but I also sometimes create a new folder for this. So I have a folder here for climate and power, and so here I'm going to save this. So here's the convention you should use. I like to use the name of the author or authors. So Cheney, sorry. So his name is Eric Cheney. Then I put the year of the article. This was 2013. Then a abbreviation for the journal. So for Econometrica, I like, so for Econometrica is a bit hard, but Econometra is relatively clear. If you have questions about what abbreviation you should use, I can just email me. I'll give you a list. And then an underscore, and then enough of the title to actually tell me what's going on here. So revolt on the Nile, economic shocks, religion, political power. All right. Now we've saved that, all right? And so we could go through and do that for all of these. Now the next step we want to do is actually, so in our, going back to our JabRef file, so we found this article, we've saved it, but the most important thing is we have it here on Google Scholar, so we can now do this import into BibTeX. And so take this and copy it to our new BibTeX file here. So when you go here, you want to push, so to use this, you'll push plus, you want to make a new BibTeX entry. You can pick any one of these, article is fine. It doesn't matter what you pick because we're going to go straight to the BibTeX source here and paste in, oops, it's not even remotely what I wanted. Paste this in. Why? Oh, for God's sake, stupid thing. All right. Google is a pain in the ass. So we go back here and paste this in. This time we actually get it. Now, key thing, oftentimes Google will actually give you the title in the form in which it is placed in the article, which means with all lowercase, which is not what we want. We actually want to have title case here because when we ultimately do this, so So when in economics we use LaTeX to make articles, and LaTeX will actually construct a bibliography automatically. So it will decide based on what citation format you have, whether you want to have all, what do we want, title case, or you want all lowercase or sentence case, basically. So what you should do anytime you put in an article here, you want to put the title in title case like this. All right, so that's the first step, and you can see now it populates these fields automatically based on that BibTeX entry. All right, so that's nice. Now, next thing you want to do is get the abstract. So going back to ProQuest, you can get that by looking. So if you do the preview here, you can just get the abstract like this. Go back to JabRef and paste that in there. All right. And so go through and do that for all of the articles that you've saved now in your My Research. All right, so now the next step is, of course, you want to go back and vary the search terms and make this to get more results. So what I would do is, so if you go back, so the easiest thing to do here is actually when you do these searches, you can actually save the search, right? And so that lets you come back here. So let's call this Climate and Power 1. So you can save that search, so you can find it later on. So here's what I want to do. Instead of climate change here, I'm going to put weather, all right? And let's see what this brings up. All right, so and now you have things like rain in Spain, turnout and partisan voting. That might be interesting. So this really long titled paper on credit markets and consumption smoothing and durable assets. And then this interesting one, do political protests matter? All weather and politics related. The other thing you can do is start to expand out the journal. So if I tell you to do a literature review, I'm going to tell you that there might be other journals you want to look into. So in the case of this, I might also want to look at, say, the Journal of Public Economics, and maybe the Journal of Development Economics. Let's take a look at what that gives us. Okay, and so now we've got slightly more. So dowry deaths, this paper from the JDE, and do voters demand more responsive governments? So another couple more papers here. And as I said, I would probably tell you what you want to search for. All right, one last place to look for citations is if we go back here to Google Scholar. So we found this paper, Revolt on the Nile. So there are two things you can do. One is look at the papers that are that cite this. So those may be useful. So in addition to this, we get quantifying the influence of climate on human conflict. We get things like climate conflict and social stability. These all might be useful. Power on the Street, evidence from Egypt's Arab Spring. So the latest delivery from Ajmolu and company. The other thing you can do is going back here and look at related articles. And so you can see you get things like poverty and crime, evidence from rainfall and trade shock. So this might be useful too, right? This paper is not yet published. So the major benefit of using Google Scholar is that it also brings up papers that aren't published yet. It's remarkable. This paper is not yet published, and yet it has more citations than my entire portfolio. So you can find things like this, local economic conditions and participation in the Rwandan genocide. That's somewhat related in the sense that it is related to economics and outcomes. So you might grab that too. So one thing I'm going to tell you is that when making these literature reviews, you want to err on the side of including things, because we can always deal with them later, all right? So you would grab all of these things in the same way as the earlier one, put them into your JabRef file, save that, and then we would look over it later on, all right? So that is the short side of what to do for a literature review, all right?